Hello. So today we're talking about knee pain, and I'm going to talk to you about 3 reasons why you have knee pain. And surprise, it's not actually because you have bad knees. So there are three main reasons why people have knee pain, and I'm going to walk you through some tests that you can do as we go through this to help you identify which is your primary problem, and then also how to fix it. So the first reason why you could have knee pain is because you have poor foot strength and poor connection to your feet and poor ankle mobility. So if you feel your knee pain towards the bottom of your knee, either on the inside or the outside, so we're not talking at the actual joint on top of the kneecap itself, but a little bit below the knee on the inside or the outside, then you probably have an issue with the foot and or ankle complex. So what we need to do to fix this is, one, increase our foot strength and connection to our feet. So exercises like toe waves, big little toe lifts, toe separation exercises, these things that are going to help us gain connection with our feet, which is super, super important for all of us. And then we also want to work on ankle mobility. So things like a combat stretch, any sort of pushing that knee over the toes while the heel is down, whether that's in a standing position, seated position, on an elevated surface, which is probably where I would start because that's going to be a little bit easier on the joint itself. But we really need to increase that range of motion because that's going to play a big part in fixing our knee pain. And I have tons of videos all about footwork and then ankle mobility, all kinds. If you search ankle mobility, there's several videos that will pop up here for you. So number one, you have poor foot strength and ankle mobility. So number two, you could have poor hip mobility. So if you have knee pain more on the top of the knee into the sides of the knees, then you probably have an issue with your hips. And so when we look at the hips are a pretty complex joint, very similar to the ankles, where we have internal rotation, external rotation, and the hip moves in a lot of different directions. And in our daily lives, most of us don't move in all of these directions. Most of us work mostly in front of us, moving mostly forward, maybe a little bit backwards, but most of us don't work side to side or work on a lot of the rotational aspects. And so when we lose that, we can develop pain, decreased range of motion through the hip, which can then lead to knee pain. So we need to really focus on increasing our mobility, which is strength in certain ranges of motion through the hip joint. So common exercises for this, a 90-90 is one of my favorite. Things like 90-90 with a back leg lift, focusing on internal rotation, which is most people's problem. Usually we're pretty good with the external rotation, and the internal rotation is where we're really lacking, and people can develop all kinds of issues like knee issues. Things like shin boxes, where we're focusing on moving through the internal and external rotation. We also want to look at things like the hip flexors, so a lizard with rotation can be really, really valuable. Also focusing on things like a frog stretch or a pigeon stretch, where we're getting a little bit deeper into the hip and then into the glutes themselves. For focusing on that range of motion can be really valuable. Number 3, and this can be for both of these other reasons, and then also if you actually have knee pain on the kneecap itself, or you feel a lot of pressure through the knee, this is a really common one, is we have one group of muscles working too much, one group of muscles working not enough. So the group of muscles that's typically overworking is our quad. So if you look down, that would be the top of your thigh. So the very top of your legs are your quad muscles. There's a group of muscles in there. And most people, we overuse those muscles quite a bit, whether it's through sitting, driving, walking, pretty much everything we do in our daily lives, we're using the front of our body, and that develops a pretty significant imbalance with the front and the back of our bodies, which is one of the most common reasons why pain develops. So what we need to do is we really need to work on our posterior strength, and our posterior strength is the back sides of our body. So we want to look at things like our lower back, into our glutes, into our hamstrings, and down to our calves. So common exercises, there's a ton of these that can be really valuable. But I personally like to do some activation exercises followed then by some more compound movement. So things like banded glute bridges, single leg glute bridges, Superman's reverse hyperextensions are really great. Lying leg curls, whether that's with a machine or just with a band, or you can also do those with a towel on the ground and no equipment whatsoever. Those are all really great to start to activate, get the hamstrings and glutes and lower back activated in a good way with the muscles starting to work. And then we want to do things like deadlifts. Deadlifts are going to be the biggest bang for your buck, and deadlifts are super good for you if done right, when done appropriately. There's a lot of variations you can do with deadlifts. My recommendation is to start with a single leg toe touch where it's just your body weight using one leg. You should feel that all the way down, starting from the glute all the way down into the hamstring, and then you can add some weight to that. You can do kickstand deadlifts and then move into more weighted both leg, stiff leg deadlifts, Romanian deadlifts, and then more conventional deadlifts, and then you have a little bit more advanced things like a sumo deadlift. But you really want to focus on that whole posterior chain. That is going to provide the knees with so much support. It's crazy how much it works, but the knees really need that support on the backside of the body. So three reasons why you can have knee pain. So 1, we're looking at foot and ankle mobility and strength. 2, we're looking at hip mobility. And 3, we're looking at strength through the backside of the body or our posterior chain. Fixing all or just one of those, depending on where your knee issues are coming from, can be really, really valuable and can help fix your knee pain. If it's not a super structural issue, like you don't have any cartilage left or you've had like bone chip or bone damage to the actual knees themselves, which most people don't. Most people can fix their knee issues using these techniques. If you don't already have it, feel free, go grab my free diagnostic assessment guide. It is completely free. It guides you through 7 tests to see where your issues are really coming from. The knees are not on that because knee issues are typically not knee issues. We want to look at the ankles and the hips first, and that assessment guide will take you right through that. So go ahead and grab that, and hope you enjoyed.